Hello again, fight fans. I'm Michael Montero for Boxing Monthly. You're watching the Neutral Corner for the week of July 1st. Crazy, crazy, crazy. 2017 is halfway through. It's been a great start to the year. By the way, you're watching this video on a brand new, shiny, crispy, beautiful lens that we bought for a new camera. It's the best lens we've ever had. So this video should look sharper and cleaner and crisper. I probably look even handsomer. Thank you all you guys who have donated and contributed to the channel. Even on YouTube, just by watching these videos, we do get ad revenue off of them. That helped us buy this new beautiful lens that I'm filming this video on. It's our first one with it, so I'm excited. Real quick, we had a few new Patreon supporters this week. Quick shout out to Yuri Zivago, to Michael, and to Robert Palmer. Thank you so much, guys. We also did our first MOB patron Skype chat with David Prazak over in the UK this weekend. We'll have that video posted up pretty soon. He's a graphic designer over there in the UK, on his way to Hong Kong for a job soon. And he sent over this graphic he made for us to use for our eventual definitive guide video for Canelo Golovkin. Check this out. Guys, that's pretty awesome. That's gonna be a great backdrop for that video. So one other thing real quick on Patreon, we have a question from Joel Morgan. And I'll just read part of it here. Given the current state of boxing judging in the USA, especially with questionable or downright ridiculous scores we've seen in some high-profile fights lately, and with the establishment judges we'd see in places like Nevada, and given that Canelo is already an important part of the Vegas machine, do you think that Triple G has a chance to win a decision in September, or do you think he's going to have to take it out of the judges' hands with a KO or TKO? Joel, that's a great question. And let me tell you, man, I've had a bunch of people ask me that. So you're not alone in wondering. You know, for me, it's a little too soon to say because we don't know who the judges are going to be. Conventional wisdom would lend all of us to think that Golovkin's going to need to go for a knockout. But if you look at, let's say, the judges we just had in that Ward-Kovalev rematch, I knew right away who the two establishment judges were that were going to score that fight shitty. I told you guys for weeks it was Dave Moretti and Glenn Feldman, but I told you that Steve Eisfeld would score the fight correctly, and he did. So it depends who we get. We don't know yet. Now, if it's Dave Moretti, Glenn Feldman, those types of judges, abso-freaking-lutely. And that's why I haven't made my definitive guide video yet for Canelo Golovkin. I want to wait as long as I can to see who the officials are going to be, because I think the judges absolutely will make a difference. I don't think the ref will be as important in that fight. But I'll say this much. With all the eyes that are going to be on that boxing match, and with all the parties involved, and it being the biggest fight commercially in boxing this year, we're not going to talk about the shit show in August, really the most important fight that I think is going to ultimately be a trilogy. I think that these three fights are going to become a trilogy. The judges are going to play an important factor. Right now, I think that we could be patient. Let's see who the judges are. Once we know who they are, I'll get back to this question, and I'll be doing a whole video about it. So for right now, let's sit tight and let's be optimists. I think that they're going to get this one right. For now, guys, let's get into some quick news and notes. I'm looking at my notes here. You know, I write down notes to go over for each section of each episode, and Tiffany scribbled little swear words in between the sentences. She wrote penis after one of my notes. She wrote penis. Tiffany, who's the adult in this room? Tiffany. Yeah. Anyway, okay, let's get to some of these news and notes, man. Ward Kovalev 2. I just talked about that one a second ago. Pay-per-view numbers, a bunch of you have asked. We don't have the official numbers out yet, but from what I'm hearing, it's going to be right around what the first fight did. So the first fight, I think, did 160,000, and they're projecting that this one will be right around that number. So I was thinking it might get close to 200, but from what I'm hearing so far, and again, this isn't confirmed, but from what I'm hearing at this point, it's not going to do anywhere near 200,000 buys. Between 2 pound-for-pound fighters, a rematch with all that bad blood, man, that's a shame. That's a real shame. Good news, World Boxing Super Series tournament. Now, when this thing was first announced, I poo-pooed it, I'll be honest. I kind of was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not buying into this. I don't think it's going to be all that. Well, guess what? The Cruiserweight tournament is pretty much set. There's one fighter they're still working on. More about that in a second. But the guys they have in this Cruiserweight tournament, Krzysztof Golovkin, Murat Gassiev, Marius Bredis, Junior Dorticos, I think is a Cuban fighter, Krzysztof Wlodarczyk, and they're very close to signing Alexander Usyk. It's not 100%, but likely that Alexander Usyk's going to join in. Guys, that is a great Cruiserweight tournament. And my 2 favorite Cruiserweights right now are Usyk and Gassiev. And if we just end up getting those 2 fighting at some point in this tournament, then it's worth it. Now, the Super Middleweight tournament, I think right now only has George Groves, so they need to finalize that. I don't know how that super middleweight tournament's going to pan out. I don't really give a shit right now because I'm so happy about the Cruiserweight one. I think that fans have been sleeping on the Cruiserweight division for years, and that's because the division is so heavily invested in Europe. There's not many American fighters. So, you know, a lot of American boxing fans just kind of turned a blind eye to it, but tournament setups like this with so many top 10 fighters, guys, that's good. That's good to go. So I'm starting to really get excited for this thing. And I'll freely admit, at first, I was not a believer. If they get Alexander Usyk to sign in with this thing, I'm sold. I'm there. So let's see what else is going on. Joseph Parker and Hughie Fury are fighting September 23rd in Manchester. And, you know, this fight originally was supposed to happen earlier in the year. Fury was injured. It gets postponed. I think originally it was going to go to New Zealand when they were first talking about doing it, but I don't know if it was a money situation or what, but they got Parker, even though he's the guy with the title, even though, let's be honest, Hughie Fury has done absolutely nothing to warrant a title shot. He's going to get this fight, and in his hometown, in his homeland. Fury is doing a tune-up fight July 8th in London, so he's not going to be coming in with a bunch of ring rust, those of you who have asked. In fact, it's going to be Parker who will be a little more rusty going into that fight. That's going to be an interesting one, man. 2 big undefeated heavyweights, sign me up. The IBF has ordered a rematch between Andre Dirrell and Uzcategui because of the complete fiasco that ended their first fight, and they called it a DQ, which it should not have been. And then, of course, you know, Dirrell's uncle punching Uzcategui and all the craziness that ensued after. So the IBF has ordered a rematch in that fight. And guess what? I like Uzcategui big in it. I think he wins that fight by stoppage. What else going on in, let's go to Twitter Talk. And I feel like I can almost do a weekly segment called Twitter Talk, with all the boxers talking shit back and forth on Twitter. But I'm sure you guys have seen the stuff going back and forth on Twitter and Instagram with Deontay Wilder, just desperately talking shit to Dillian Whyte, who he was offered $3 million by Eddie Hearn, Wilder was, to go over to the UK and fight Dillian Whyte. This would have been a career high payday for him by a mile. Wilder's never made anywhere near $3 million. He turned it down and he was demanding $7 million. And I guess to try to bait Eddie Hearn into doing it, he's just talking a bunch of shit about Dillian Whyte on various social media platforms and talking about killing him and all this stuff in interviews and stuff on various YouTube channels. It's like, why is Wilder talking shit to Dillian Whyte? He didn't offer you the $3 million. Eddie Hearn did. If you should be talking shit to anyone, honestly, it should be your own people because you're an idiot for turning down that money. Now look, man, with Deontay Wilder, I got some shit from the fringe element of Russian paranoid YouTube channels out there. These fans who are kind of obsessed with the Alexander Povetkin thing, right? Related to the VADA drug tests and all that stuff a year or so ago with Deontay Wilder. And I got some shit from those people for defending Deontay Wilder in that situation. But as far as I saw it, Wilder really didn't do anything wrong. He didn't want to sign the fight at first. He delayed like a motherfucker for a year or so, but finally signed to fight Povetkin. Spent tons of his own money training over in the UK before they were getting ready to go over to Russia and fight him. I mean, he even agreed to go to Russia. He was set to make a career-high payday, and that whole fight fell apart. And I defended Wilder because it really wasn't his fault all that stuff happened. It was completely out of his hands. He could have chosen to fight a dirty fighter, even with all that going on, but it was up to the sanctioning body, honestly, and they ruled on it before Wilder and his team even could. And yes, I know there's semantics involved. Yeah. But guys, I defend Wilder in that situation, but the rest of his entire career has been shit. He is one of the weakest heavyweight titleists, and we've had titles in the heavyweight division change hands a million times very quickly, right? From one fight to the next. There are guys who have held a title for 6 months and lost it immediately. But in terms of somebody holding the WBC heavyweight championship for several years, it's been a few years now, I believe, 2 or 3 years, Wilder's had that title. He might be the weakest champion, quote unquote, ever that's held a title that long in the heavyweight division, a major title. I can't think of one in recent years that is as weak and fraudulent as Deontay Wilder. And for him to turn down $3 million to fight Dillian Whyte, who's not a top 10 heavyweight, probably not even a top 15 heavyweight, top 20. For him to turn down career-high money to build himself up in the UK, which is the hottest market in boxing right now, to fight a guy that Anthony Joshua defeated in his 15th pro fight. That's insane. It's asinine. And it tells you everything you need to know, not only about Deontay Wilder, but about his advisor and the people managing his career. Talking about mismanaged careers, Guillermo Rigondeaux. He's on Twitter going back and forth with Vasyl Lomachenko and his manager, Egis Klimas. They've been going back and forth for a few days now. And apparently, the talks have started back up with the Rigondeaux. The Rigondeaux were disappeared for like the past year, and now they're coming back. The cult of Rigo. I call them the Rigondeaux. They're back. And they're demanding that Lomachenko fight Guillermo Rigondeaux, and he's talking trash on Twitter. And guys, he tweeted, I think it was today, maybe yesterday, but I saw it today, that he's willing to go up not just to 126, he's willing to go up to 130 pounds to make this fight with Vasyl Lomachenko happen. But I guess he's demanding big money, which he just made $125,000 in a co-feature in a major pay-per-view on the Ward Kovalev 2 card. So $125,000 title defense, and now you're going to demand millions of dollars against Lomachenko. I don't know. But if he's willing to move all the way up to 130 pounds, it might be worth Top Rank to pay out millions of dollars to get Guillermo Rigondeaux. Pay out 7 figures. I'm not saying it's going to be multiple $1 million, but it'll be over $1 million for a guy who's not worth... Look, Rock Nation loves overpaying people. They just paid him $125,000. Think about that. They paid Andre Ward $7 million for a pay-per-view that's going to generate about $2 million, right? They paid Guillermo Rigondeaux $125,000. So Top Rank isn't stupid. They're not going to throw a boatload of money at Rigondeaux, but maybe if they can come to some agreement, 130 pounds, guess what? It doesn't look like Orlando Salido wants anything to do with Vasyl Lomachenko this August. I was hoping that would happen. It looks like that fight has fallen through. If we can get Lomachenko and Rigondeaux fighting, it really doesn't matter what weight they fight at. Weight has little, if anything, to do with that fight. Hey, I want to see it. It'd be a technical, sharp, chess match type of event, I'd like to see that. But that's enough with the news and notes this week. There really wasn't a lot going on last week, guys, so we're just going to get right into the preview of what's coming up this week. After a dead week last week, we've got a bunch of boxing going on this week. It starts on Tuesday, PBC on Fox Sports 1 from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Undefeated, Florida-based prospect, 15-0, Miguel Cruz fights, and I believe the second 10-rounder of his young career. He's the headliner of that PBC and Fox Sports 1 card. Some of those are fun, so check that one out. Friday, we got a couple cards. We have Golden Boy Promotions on ESPN 2 from Indio, California. We've got a few undefeated prospects fighting, stepping up a little bit in opposition. Oscar Negrete, 16-0 bantamweight fighter. Ryan Martin, really exciting, 18-0 lightweight prospect who hits very, very hard. Make sure you guys see him if you haven't yet. And Lamont Roach, 13-0. He is a junior lightweight. All three of those undefeated prospects on that card. That should be a nice ESPN card from Golden Boy Promotions. Also, a really good PBC card on Bounce TV from Toledo, Ohio. Julian Williams, J-Rock, making his comeback from that KO loss last December here in Los Angeles that I was at, and hung out with Julian Williams and his team in the hotel after that fight. Wonderful people, wonderful family. I was really, really down after that loss. It was a tough, tough loss for him. And, you know, a guy who had a lot of momentum, just saw it come crashing down right there. Hasn't fought since. It's going to be interesting to see how he looks. But in the main event, Robert Easter Jr. against Denis Shafikov for Easter's IBF lightweight title. Easter's 19-0 with 14 knockouts. He's 5'11", big for that division. 26 years old, made his pro debut only 5 years ago in 2012. Looks good right now. I'd like for him to be a little busier. For a guy who's been fighting 4 years or so, hasn't fought enough, but he already has a title. He's looked good. Denis Shafikov, one of these hard luck, hard scrabble veterans. Undersized, he's 5'5", he's 32 years old. He went pro in 2003. So he's been a pro almost a decade longer than Easter. And Shafikov always brings it, always gives a true effort, right? You're going to get your money's worth if you're a fan going to see this guy or watching on TV, but he's just so undersized in this fight. And I just think youth's going to be served here. I think Easter gets pushed. I think Shafikov probably goes the distance. Easter would make a real big statement if he were to stop him. Either way, this thing is going rounds, and I think it's going the distance. I like Easter by decision here, but I think that this is a fight that's going to serve Easter well in helping him develop for future fights. So that's it for the week, right? And then on the weekend, we have a card that it's July 1st here in the States, but July 2nd over in Australia. This is on ESPN from Brisbane, Australia. Manny Pacquiao makes his 2017 debut against very little known Jeff Horn, who's Australian, and the Australian faithful are coming out. They're expecting a sellout crowd of 55,000 there at the arena. When this first came out, when this fight was first announced, I should say, I shit on it just like all you guys, right? We laughed at this one. But all things considered, guys, when you really, really look at this, it's Manny Pacquiao, one of the most globally recognized sports figures there is, that's still active, that there is, especially in boxing and in all fight sports. And he's never fought over there in Australia, right? When's the last time he's been on regular, non-premium cable television in America, if ever? I can't think of a scenario where he wasn't on HBO or Showtime or pay-per-view. He's going to be on ESPN, and I get it. This is a mismatch. Pacquiao is 59-6-2. He's been in with everybody. He's seen it all. Jeff Horn is 16-0 with a draw. This is a mandatory fight, and Jeff Horn earned his mandatory status in the ring. Yeah, it's the WBO. But Pacquiao going up, defending his title, doing this world tour kind of stuff, it being on ESPN, I'm excited for it. And I'm excited to see the atmosphere, the energy, and all that bleed through the screen. And then when you factor in where Pacquiao is at this stage of his career, he's 5'5", he's 38 years old. Jeff Horn, they list him at 5'9". I think he's more like 5'8". He's still a few inches taller than Pacquiao. He's 29. He's almost a decade younger. He's fresh. It'll be interesting to see. Pacquiao has not had a knockout. His last knockout stoppage was against Miguel Cotto in 2009. His last real knockout was earlier that year against Ricky Hatton, and that was at 140 pounds. Cotto was at 145, I think it was a catchweight. So he hasn't had a knockout in 8 years. If ever he was going to get a knockout again in boxing, it's going to be against a guy like Jeff Horn. And I think if Pacquiao gets a knockout, I actually think it comes early. I think he's going to hit Horn with some shots that are going to come from angles and come with a certain speed and velocity that Horn's never seen, right? It's going to be up to Horn to be able to take those punches and respond. Will we see a fight that's kind of like Chris Algieri, where there's multiple knockdowns, or maybe like the Jesse Vargas fight, that kind of thing where Pacquiao can hurt the guy, he can stun him, maybe he could drop him but can't quite stop him? Or is Horn that inexperienced and just not that good, and Pacquiao can actually get him out of there and score a knockout on national free television? That remains to be seen. If I were a betting man, I'd say Pacquiao by decision with maybe a few knockdowns in the process. But also, guys, on this card, Michael Conlan fighting in a 6-rounder, Shane Mosley Jr. fighting in an 8-rounder. I'm excited just to see boxing of this magnitude, this kind of event on ESPN. Now, I can hear some of you saying I'm being a hypocrite because I've been shitting on the shit show August 26th or 28th. I can't remember which day it is, somewhere in August. Yet, I'm talking mostly positive about this fight with Pacquiao-Horn. And I get it. There are parallels, but there are also huge, huge differences, guys. In terms of actual boxing, Jeff Horn's better than Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor has a record of 0-0. Now, Jeff Horn hasn't beat world beaters. He hasn't beat any Hall of Fame pound-for-pound level fighters, but he's beat 16 licensed professional boxers, and he did have some amateur fights. And he's been ranked by the WBO. He's ranked by the WBC as well. He's in their clean boxing program through that ranking. And for those of you who have asked, this is not a VADA contracted fight. So there is no VADA testing as far as I know. I talked with them today and they said there is no testing. So Horn is subject to the clean boxing program, random testing. I don't know how the Australian authorities handle testing there. Any of my Aussie viewers, subscribers, please let me know if you guys have any information about that, because I'd like to know. Admittedly, I'm pretty ignorant about the testing scene and the way the commission works over there in Australia. So any of you could shed light on that, I'd greatly appreciate it. But say what you will about Jeff Horn. He's still better than Conor McGregor because he's actually fought 17 professional boxing matches and been ranked by a world organization and won a mandatory eliminator in said organization. Conor hasn't done any of that, right? Basically, in terms of boxing, Conor McGregor is here and Jeff Horn's here. So Manny Pacquiao is fighting a much better fighter in terms of boxing than Floyd Mayweather is. And he's fighting on free television. It's ESPN. Now, there are very few homes that don't have network cable now, like ESPN, MTV. There's some that don't. But every damn bar in America, especially a sports bar, has ESPN. Every airport has ESPN, right? So if you were at a bus station on Saturday or Sunday, depending on what part of the country you're in or what part of the world you're in, this fight's going to be on TV somewhere. And you're going to get to see Manny Pacquiao in front of 50, 55,000 screaming fans. That's pretty cool, guys. But I'll say this. If you hate this matchup and you hate the shit show, you don't have to watch either. The difference is with this one, you just change the channel. Turn on ESPN2 and watch whatever the hell they have on. Women's JV volleyball or some shit. Enjoy that. But yeah, with this fight, again, Pacquiao by decision. Possibly he scores a knockout with a stunning kind of shot that surprises Horn and he can't recover. If Pacquiao catches him early in the round and puts him down, Horn might not be able to recover. If he catches him late in the round, maybe Horn can adjust and kind of pull a Chris Algieri. But you guys got to remember, Chris Algieri was a lot bigger and taller than Jeff Horn, and Algieri had shown a lot of toughness in other fights. You remember his fight against Provodnikov. We haven't seen how Jeff Horn can catch, so that'll be interesting. Also this weekend in Moscow, Alexander Povetkin fighting Andrei Rudenko. Eduard Troyanovsky making his comeback since the first round knockout loss to Julius Ndongo last year against the Italian fighter Michele Di Rocco. And I believe for all these fighters, except for Di Rocco, this is their first fight of 2017. So a few of these Russian fighters making their 2017 debut. Povetkin Rudenko is for the WBO international title, so a minor WBO title. I don't quite understand how the WBO would sanction the international title for Povetkin given all the recent issues there, but it's the WBO. Also, Diego De La Hoya going down to Argentina, fighting in the Lion's Den down in Argentina. You got to love this prospect, man. This is his first fight outside the USA. He's going to get battle tested in this fight. It'll be interesting to see if Diego De La Hoya can go down there to Argentina and pick up a victory on harsh enemy territory. In my opinion, if he goes down there and makes a statement, he goes from prospect to contender overnight. That's it, guys. Not a very long episode this week, but let me know what you think about this Pacquiao-Horn fight, man. I think overall it's a good thing. I'll see you at the fights.